The anime story begins by introducing the Tower of God, a place where wishes come true for those who reach the top. We meet Rachel, a girl running with Bam, the main character, in pursuit. Bam catches up and asks where she's headed. Rachel apologizes, saying she must climb the tower, and then she disappears in a flash of light as the tower's doors open. Obsessed with Rachel, Bam follows her into the tower and encounters Hedon, the tower's guardian. Hedon challenges him to a test: break a ball inside a cage while avoiding an eel's attacks. Despite the danger, Bam accepts. On his way, Bam meets a girl and a boy speaking an unknown language. The boy, named Evans, gives him a ball that lets him understand them. They call him an irregular because he opened the tower's door by himself. The girl, Yuri, a princess of Jihad, decides to help Bam despite Evans' warnings. She lends him the legendary sword, Black March. Grateful, Bam faces the test but struggles with the eel, only wounding it slightly. He recalls his past with Rachel, his only link to his lost history. In the present, Bam is still trying to break the black ball. The eel recovers, but Bam activates the Black March's power, impressing Yuri, as the sword lends him strength due to his appearance. With its power, Bam passes the test and moves to the next floor. Yuri tries to follow him to retrieve her sword but is stopped by Evans, who reminds her of the rules. Despite this, Yuri persists. Hedon observes and kills the eel with a wave of his staff, intrigued by the encounter. Bam then faces another challenge, fighting against 400 participants, with only 200 advancing. Bam, holding his sword, tries to escape but is pursued by competitors. He encounters a big guy with multiple eyes, but as he prepares to fight, two other opponents, a boy with white hair and a lizard with a spear, approach. They recognize the sword's power and want to battle Bam. Bam finds himself in a battle with the multi-eyed giant. Meanwhile, the white-haired boy taunts the lizard, Rak Wraithrazor, who angrily declares he's not an alligator but a lizard. The white-haired boy, Cohen, asks Rak what he wants from Bam. Rak replies he wants to hunt him. Cohen, initially uninterested, becomes intrigued by Bam's sword and decides to join him. As they hide, Cohen introduces himself to Bam and asks about the sword. Bam explains it was lent by a princess. Cohen suggests they team up. Rak continues to pursue them, but Bam and Cohen manage to catch and hold him. They are then transported to the next stage with the other participants. In the next stage, Lero Ro, a supervisor, explains the rules and uses his water skill to push participants back. Bam surprises everyone by not being repelled, prompting Lero to consider him a monster and allowing him to pass the test. They make a bet on who will pass a water barrier first, ending in a tie. Lero answers Bam's questions about the tower and irregulars, explaining those who enter without being chosen by Hedon are considered irregulars. A frustrated contestant undergoes an immortality test by Lero, demonstrating Shinsu's power, and admits he is not as strong as he thought. Contestants move to the next phase, where Lero warns Bam about Cohen. The third test, the Red Door, begins. Cohen recalls his past betrayal and exile. A stranger gives them a hint about the test's importance of time, but Cohen is suspicious. They enter a room with a giant clock and red doors. The test administrator, Yuhan, explains they can only open one door within 10 minutes. Cohen struggles with trust issues but Rak instinctively kicks a door open before 5 minutes pass, and they pass the test. Yuhan comments on their trust dynamics. Cohen leaves quietly, warned about his briefcase contents. The stranger who hinted at the test is revealed as a Yuhan infiltrator testing if the clue helped or hurt them. Bam tries talking to Cohen about the princess, but Cohen prefers not to discuss it. Hooded participants also take the tower tests. Yuhan and Quant, in charge of the first phases, discuss the hooded group's success and their elimination of other participants. Yuhan asks Quant to cover it up to avoid being fired. Quant agrees, and Yuhan contacts Lero about the situation. Meanwhile, Bam, trying to buy a drink for Rak, realizes he has no money. A guy in a sports suit buys it for him, introducing himself as Shibisu and his companions Anak and Hats. They express a desire to reach the final together. Lero informs them about an extra, optional test called the Crown Game, where passing grants access to the entire tower. Most participants join enthusiastically. Lero explains they must protect the crown wearer from being stolen until others are defeated. Shibisu's group goes first, with Anak taking on another group alone, using her sword-turned-whip. Her weapon attracts the Black March's attention and a hooded figure. After winning, Anak secures the crown. Bam sees Rachel among the hooded figures but thinks he's mistaken. Lero announces Shibisu's group now holds the crown and starts a countdown for another group to challenge them. Rak prepares to act, but Cohen asks to wait. At the count's end, two groups enter the battle. The story continues with Hats and Shibisu splitting up to protect Anak. Hats easily takes care of one group, while Shibisu struggles against another. In the heat of battle, Shibisu is saved by hats. Meanwhile, a boy named Luro uses Shinsu secretly and attacks Anik, which angers her. Anik, still on the throne, retaliates with her sword that transforms into whips. The power of Anik's sword triggers Black March to release its energy. Anik notices the presence of Black March and stops Luro's group, taking advantage of the confusion and leaving the field, resulting in her disqualification. Anik confronts Bam about possessing the Black March, insisting it belongs to her as a princess of Jihad and is not meant for him. Bam refuses to hand it over, stating that Yuri lent it to him. Anik explains that Black March is part of the 3-month series of King Ashel Edward, like her own Green April. She proposes a wager for the swords, and although Bam is reluctant, he accepts to avoid future conflict. On her way back to her cell, Anik is provoked by a hooded girl who calls her a traitor, revealing Rachel's presence in the group. The trial resumes with various groups, including Bam's, participating. Cohen secures the crown in his briefcase, daring others to take it. After dodging several attacks, Cohen reveals the crown was a fake, and the hooded group intervenes. During the battle, Cohen's fake crown ploy is unveiled as Bam takes the throne with the real crown, showcasing Cohen's ability to copy objects with his briefcase. The groups ally against Cohen, but Rak defeats them all. The third round ends, and more groups join the battle in the fourth round. Cohen reveals he saved one group in a previous trial, and they ally with him. Rak praises Cohen for his cunning, and Bam's allies defeat the remaining group. As the final round begins, a multi-eyed masked woman defeats other groups and targets Bam, defended by a member of the hooded group. Bam recognizes the masked woman's voice as Rachel's, but gets no response. During the fight, Bam unleashes his Shinsu uncontrollably to protect Rachel, severely injuring the masked woman. Black March calms Bam down, making him faint. Elsewhere, Yuri and Evans prepare to leave for the test floor where Bam is. Yuri is anxious, but a large man assures them of the location's safety. Meanwhile, Bam lies unconscious, with Cohen by his side. Luro discusses the test with Yuhan, explaining the crown game and the hooded group's unexpected behavior. Luro suspects a connection between the hooded group and one of the examinees, which is against the rules. Yuhan defends the test's purpose of eliminating dangerous elements from the tower and discusses Shinsu control. Cohen insists Bam should wake up for the next test. Rachel asks Cohen to lie to Bam, wanting to avoid complications between them. Cohen thinks Rachel is selfish, but ultimately agrees. Anik takes Black March to Shibisu, who fails to communicate with it. Another hooded girl, Indorsi, warns Anik to return the sword, calling her an imposter. Cohen decides Bam should not continue his relationship with Rachel. Bam wakes up after 5 days, and all participants gather to select positions for the next test. Luro explains the different combat roles in the tower: fishermen for close combat, spearmen for long range, lighthouse keepers for gathering information, scouts for analyzing enemies, and wave controllers for manipulating Shinsu. Cohen asks about injured participants, and Luro affirms Bam's potential as a wave controller, despite delays. After the meeting, Cohen tells Bam he can still compete and fabricates a story about Rachel, cheering Bam up. Bam realizes Rachel saved him and heads towards her room but decides against knocking. In class, Bam learns about Shinsu, which requires a pact with a guardian to control. The only participant who has made a pact is Luro, who did so while asleep. Bam attempts the pact, and a giant snake guardian agrees due to his incredible smell, exhausting Bam as he watches the others act normally. They then return to rest, and on the way, Bam apologizes to the masked girl for damaging her eye. Later, he meets Ho and Laura, who offer to help him if he needs anything. Bam then returns to Cohen, who informs him that Carr belongs to the spearman position and is currently in his class. In that class, they must throw a spear at a distant target. He also meets the boy who accompanied Rachel, who proves to be a skilled spearman. Later, Shibisu arrives with hats to ask Bam for a favor and takes him to the cafeteria where more members of other groups are gathered. Indorsi joins them and questions how they can get along so well if they are enemies. Shibisu explains that he was selected for the scout position and must make 9 friends as a test, so he needs everyone's help. However, Indorsi is skeptical about friendship. Anak then arrives, supposedly no longer part of Shibisu's group, and remarks that Indorsi, a princess of Jihad, has fallen low by simply eating with others. Bam notices the presence of the Black March, and Anak makes it clear she won't give it back. Bam asks if both Anak and Indorsi are Yuri's sisters, and Indorsi confirms they are, but not biologically. They are chosen from the best families and races to be Jihad's representatives. Indorsi attends a class for those selected for the fisherman position, where they must accumulate points by taking down opponents, with the risk of losing their lives. Indorsi considers eliminating others for more points but is attacked by Anak. Indorsi repels her attack, calling her weak without her green April, and reminds her she is an imposter. Anak retorts that all princesses are imposters. In the lighthouse keeper class, Cohen is responsible for gathering information. Rachel is also seen performing the same task. Cohen discovers that Carr qualified for the next test and searches for information about Rachel and Bam, but finds little, which he finds odd. He then looks into Anak and learns she was chosen as a princess after becoming supreme and receiving the Green April. This catches Cohen's attention since Anak should be dead according to the records. Meanwhile, the battle between Anak and Endorsi continues. Both have thrown several participants into the void during their chase. Anak catches up with Endorsi, who stops her and slams her to the ground. Endorsi reveals she is the daughter of the real Anak, the true princess of Jihad, and realized this during the crown test, calling Anak an imposter. Anak's past is revealed, showing her happy with her mother who married a famous cook. One day, the cook was killed by other princesses of Jihad, who also killed Anak's mother when she sought revenge. For this reason, Anak seeks to eliminate all princesses of Jihad, starting with Endorsi. The king of Jihad, the first man to climb the tower and establish the kingdom, grants women the title of princess in exchange for their power. These princesses are not his daughters but are chosen from across the tower. The power comes with the condition that they cannot have relationships with men or children to prevent power spread. Anak's mother disobeyed this, leading to Anak's vengeful mission. In their battle, Endorsi dodges all of Anak's attacks, claiming Anak's mother made a grave mistake. Anak, enraged, manages to get close enough to break Endorsi's guard and push her into the void. However, Endorsi grabs Anak, and they both fall, ending up at the bottom of the platform. They survive and begin to argue. Endorsi tells Anak her mother, considered a sister, treated her well after becoming a princess. Endorsi asks if Anak regretted her actions, but Anak says no, recalling her farewell to her mother before her death. Elsewhere, Bam practices a spell with other participants. Who thought himself superior to Bam, realizes he can't master Shinsu while Bam keeps improving, thanks to Laura's help. Laura taught Bam to control Shinsu in exchange for a favor. Cohen arrives to take Bam away, leaving Hu envious. Cohen informs Bam about the fight between Anak and Endorsi, where both were seriously injured, likely due to their complex relationship. Shibisu appears, sad about needing more friends to pass his test. Bam asks Cohen to help, and Cohen devises a plan. Meanwhile, Endorsi is in the hospital with a broken leg, unable to afford stitches or food. Bam and Hats visit, bringing food but only delivering it once Endorsi agrees to be friends with Shibisu. Reluctantly, she agrees. They try the same with Anak, who refuses until they offer a chicken pie. They celebrate their successful plan. Later, everyone is in the cafeteria except Rachel, who is hiding from Bam and eating apples, alone. Endorsi follows her to the bathroom and talks to her. Rachel asks if Endorsi has made any new friends, and Endorsi says she stays with them because they pay for her food. Rachel also inquires if Bam has mentioned her, and Endorsi says no. Endorsi then praises Bam, expressing confusion about why Rachel avoids him when he's willing to sacrifice himself for her. During Shinsu's class, Hu continues to envy Bam's sudden improvement, suspecting he is hiding something. After training, Hu feels exhausted and recalls his village being attacked. Someone knocks on his door, leaving a letter instructing him on how to ascend the tower. Later, Luro meets with Yuhan to demand explanations for not overseeing the next trials, as they plan to replace him with a less competent administrator, Quant. Luro gathers all participants to explain the next test, called the joint test. Rack and Rachel's partner will not participate as they passed a previous test. The participants are divided into 2 teams, receiving individual marks for points. Cohen realizes he is on Team A, while Bam is on Team B. There will be 2 chasers, Quant and a fisherman from each team, identified by red badges. The test takes place in a circular building resembling a ship. To win, a team's chaser must reach the finish line or steal Quant's badge. The winning team gets 10,000 points, and 20,000 points if they take Quant's badge. They lose if Quant takes their chaser's badge. The participants are taken to the circular building. Cohen, acting as the leader, lures the pursuer using Shibisu as bait. They wait for Quant, who cannot use Shinsu to level the powers. Quant chases Shibisu but realizes it's a trap, knocking out one lighthouse keeper and continuing to chase Shibisu. However, he falls into the trap as Cohen was also a lighthouse keeper, and Anak was the fisherwoman tasked with stealing Quant's badge. Despite Anak's attempts with Green April, she fails to take the badge, angering Quant. Luro wanted to oversee this test because Quant loses control when angry. However, Quant restrains himself and waits for the participants' next plan. He gives them a 2-minute head start before chasing them. Luro doubts if Cohen has a more complex plan in mind, while Yuhan believes Cohen has something else planned. In the team, Bam is searching for Rachel, who is going by the name Michelle to mislead him. Endorsi informs him that she's already left, and when Bam asks why he chose her, she replies that she was his only option. The group continues running towards a bridge to win the race, but Kuan knows that Quant will make it difficult. Quant is still counting before he chases them. Once he's finished, he starts pursuing them. Kuan notices this and instructs everyone to get into position. Anak is in an elevator and needs 10 minutes to reach the bridge. Quant will have to take the stairs, making him vulnerable to an ambush. They need to stall him for at least 5 minutes. If Plan B fails, they must lead the pursuer to the exit. Quant reaches the staircase and realizes he's been ambushed. He knows the pursuer from that team is on her way up, but before following her, he plans to teach them a lesson. Using incredible speed and hiding in the shadows, he takes out participants on the stairs one by one. It doesn't take a minute, and Quant is still advancing through the participants. Anak exits the elevator while being escorted, but Quant catches up as the entire group on the stairs is defeated. Shibisu suggests waking Laura for help, but Kuan hesitates as Laura has already passed. Liro watches from a monitor and thinks he's lost, knowing Quant will catch Anak soon. Carr tells him not to underestimate Kuan. Liro suspects Kuan might have copied the badge with his briefcase, but Yuhan assures him that's impossible due to the Shinsu modifications. Shibisu and 2 others should stop Quant, but he defeats them easily, and they inform Kuan they've lost sight of him. Quant reaches the bridge Anak is on but encounters Kuan, who claims Anak jumped to use the exit below. Quant doesn't believe him because she couldn't survive such a fall. Kuan explains that as a princess of Jihad, she strengthened her body and is now running blind. He tries to mislead Quant, as Anak is actually hiding in a blue cube Kuan controls. Quant decides to jump onto the bridge with Kuan, knowing if Kuan dies, Anak will fall too. As they fall, Kuan lets go of Quant and is saved by Anak's sword, causing only Quant to fall. Anak climbs back to the bridge to finish the test. Bam, watching with Group B, is thrilled they might win, but the group stares at him because if they win, Group B cannot pass. Anak reaches the final point, but Quant is there and takes the badge, making Team A lose. Group B celebrates passing. Kuan apologizes to Team A for poor leadership, pretending to avoid their hatred. He purposely betrayed Team A to save Bam. With Laura's help, they found Quant to help him return to the bridge. Laura wonders why Kuan betrayed his team, but Yuhan explains Kuan needed his friends in Group B to advance. In Group B, members argue over who will lead. Endorsi offers herself and is accepted. They head towards the bridge with the badge. Endorsi, Bam, and 2 others take the lift while Hats and Spearman take the stairs. Serena and Who wait at the entrance. Serena tells Who she's lost motivation, fearing she'll have to kill her friends in the next trials. She recounts how her friends were killed by a Supreme, but she was saved by Heaton, who brought her to the tower. Serena struggles with killing now, but Who is indifferent. Hats alerts the group as Quant approaches. Endorsi and others exit the lift onto the bridge. Endorsi betrays her companions, explaining her past and desire to eliminate Group B contestants, as only 4 can pass. She warns Bam that he'll face similar challenges if he wants to advance with Rachel. Hats instructs the Spearman to hide for an ambush. Quant, upset by his earlier humiliation, abandons Serena to rejoin Endorsi against the contestants. Bam intervenes, reminding Endorsi of her own weakness. Distracted, Endorsi is attacked, but Bam takes the blow. He then searches for Rachel. Quant interrupts Rachel, taking her with the excuse of discussing Bam. Rachel is taken hostage by Who wants to harm her to make Bam suffer. The test broadcast is interrupted, but Yuhan insists it continue. Hats fights Quant to buy time but fails. In desperation, Hats clings to Quant, allowing the Spearman to attack, but they betray him. Quant shifts focus to the Spearman, warning them of a painful death. Who realizes Bam will rescue Rachel. Quant appears, disrupting the plan. Bam arrives, and Who forces him to confront Quant, but Quant immobilizes Bam with Shinsu and goes after the badge bearer. Who stabs Rachel in desperation. Bam mimics Quant's technique, defeating Who and rescuing Rachel. Rachel dies, and Who, envious of Bam, recounts his past and takes his own life. Serena finds Who dead. Endorsi takes the badge from Quant, winning the battle. Yuhan calls the test over. The next day, Carr tries to explain Rachel's partner's disappearance. Endorsi claims ignorance, only knowing him as Rachel's companion. Kuan retreats, thinking only 2 wave controllers can pass, including Bam. Laura is already qualified, so Kuan ensured Bam had enough points. Elsewhere, Princess Yuri argues with Evan about delays in reaching Bam. Kuan rests, interrupted by Rak, who is now miniature and blames Yuhan. Rak asks Kuan to make him big again, but Kuan can't. Rak decides to find Bam, but Kuan reveals Bam's reluctance to continue climbing the tower since Rachel is in a coma. Bam appears, revealing Rachel's paralysis but remains determined to climb the tower as her legs. Cohen recalls his past relationship with Maria and decides to join Bam in his mission. Bam asks for one more favor, to organize a funeral for Ho. Serena, Quant, and Luro attend the funeral, and afterwards, they all drink a toast in Ho's honor. Bam talks to Rachel, who apologizes for abandoning him. Bam forgives her, thanking her for being his light in dark times, and Rachel cries. Later, Serena leaves the tower without saying goodbye, leaving her dagger for Shibisu. Meanwhile, Master Yuga is in a secret conversation about recovering Black March and Green April but is interrupted by Yuhan, who discovers him. It turns out to be Ren, the 67th agent of Jihad's royal guard. Yuhan reveals that he has known about Ren for some time but chose to ignore him. Feeling cornered, Ren summons a giant snake to attack, but Yuhan counters with another snake, stopping Ren's attack. Ren, bored by the lack of challenges, admits his intent to eliminate Anak. Yuhan agrees to help Ren complete his mission by following the tower's rules, and asks Ren to inform his boss before having tea with him. Cohen talks to Luro about a letter given to Ho before the teams were formed, realizing the sender new participants' positions, especially Rachel's. Luro then announces the approved teams, including Endorsi, Anak, Rak, Ghost, Shibisu, Hats, Nair, Laura, Bam, and Cohen. Rachel is eliminated due to her injuries. A participant who didn't pass complains, and Yuhan tests his strength. Cohen expresses dissatisfaction and is called to the front, explaining that he wants Rachel to participate in the final test. Yuhan states that only irregulars can apply for a guardian test. Bam reveals he is an irregular, surprising everyone. Bam meets with the guardian to ask for Rachel's participation in the trial. The guardian grants permission, and Bam informs Yuhan. The final test begins, involving deep-sea fishing where Bam and Rachel are to be caught and eaten by the Gobit Queen, who will then eject them to the surface. The others must stop goblins from stealing the fish and protect dolphins from striped pigs and a ferocious monster called Toro. As the test begins, Bam and Rachel are in a Shinsu bubble. Hatsa's group watches the goblins, Rak's group waits to intervene, and Shibisu's group watches the pigs. Yuri's group gets closer to Bam. Shibisu finds a monster devouring a participant. Anak and Endorsi fight the monster, leading to an argument and a bet. Cohen devises a new plan with Nair's abilities, but Anak encounters Ren, who has her mother's necklace and admits to being responsible for her death. Ren wounds Anak and gives Endorsi Green April to kill her. Hatsa's group is discovered by goblins, ruining the plan. Endorsi returns Green April to Anak and receives Black March. Together, they subdue Ren. But he attacks Endorsi and Anak. Yuri arrives and confronts Ren. Rak fights goblins with Laura's help. Yuri easily fights Ren and sends him flying. The goblins and striped pigs fight, lured by Cohen. A mysterious boy cuts the transmission of the test, raising suspicions about Yuhan's calmness. Evans and Cir Eden rush to find Yuri, and Yuhan invites them to tea, asking questions. Evans clarifies their mission to retrieve Black March, and Yuhan maintains a neutral stance. Yuri fights Ren and is about to kill him when Evans tells her through an orb that she can kill the infiltrator but cannot help Anak. Yuri walks away from Ren without making a decision, ordering Kiradin to eliminate him. Kiradin smashes Ren with his hammer. Cohen declines an offer to see Maria. Hat arrives to help but the mysterious boy leaves, pleased to see Cohen has friends. Hat senses something is wrong since Cohen wouldn't rest while his friends are in danger. Ren, crushed, tells Yuri that she was actually looking for Bam, but it's too late as she has sent a monster after him. Bam, talking to Rachel, says he now has friends and some control over Shinsu, and together they will climb the tower. Suddenly, the monster attacks Bam. Yuri wants to interfere, but Yuhan warns that Bam will be disqualified. Anak convinces Yuri not to interfere, trusting Bam to defeat the monster. Bam struggles, getting injured and swallowed by the monster. He ultimately frees himself by exploding the monster from within with radiant Shinsu. Exhausted, Bam falls into Rachel's arms. Yuri, trusting Bam's friends, takes Green April and leaves a metal feather for Shibisu to give to Bam, telling him to meet her on the 77th floor. As she leaves, Yuri meets a masked girl who turns out to be a guide. Meanwhile, Bam and Rachel are about to be swallowed by the Gobit Queen. Bam assures Rachel they will reach the top together, but Rachel betrays him, pushing him into the void. Bam is stunned as he falls, while Rachel feels liberated, recalling how the tower never chose her. Rachel remembers begging Hedon to allow her to ascend the tower despite not being chosen. Hedon revealed Bam was the true chosen one and offered Rachel a test to kill Bam. Rachel accepted but asked for a weapon. Hedon gave her a guardian and a chance to revive. Rachel incited Ho to kill her, leading to her revival by Ghost. Her actions were manipulated to be alone with Bam to kill him, driven by hatred and envy. Rachel returns to the surface, claiming Bam did not survive the monster's attack. Luro informs the participants that Bam's body was not found, suggesting he was eaten by fish. The test concludes, and everyone passes. Luro withdraws, leaving Rak and the others saddened. Lyra confronts Yuhan about Bam's fate. Bam's friends feel they owe him a favor and agree to help Rachel climb the tower, except Kuan, who secretly doubts her. Luro is fired and seeks Quan to investigate further. Yuhan takes the participants to another location for more trials. Meanwhile, Bam, still alive, is found by Werian. Bam wants to know why Rachel tried to kill him. Werian suggests Bam climb the tower again to find answers and offers to train him. Several years later, Bam is seen as an adult, marking the end of the first season of Tower of God. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.